Good evening and welcome to this edition of The List on UWW-TV. I'm Chris Pittner alongside David Pollier. For the next few minutes, we'll present our top 5 sports stories of the week and discuss why they made our top 5. Did your top 5 stories make the list? Let's find out. At number 5, we're headed towards the end of the first round of the NBA playoffs with some big upsets potentially about to take place. Some upsets include the Miami Heat over the Milwaukee Bucks, the New York Knicks leading the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Lakers currently leading the Grizzlies 3-1. David, what are some potential matchups we'll end up seeing in the second round if things keep going this way?
Well, I think the biggest marquee matchup that would happen in the second round is already almost set in stone with the Nuggets and the Suns both winning their series last night. I think these are going to be the two best offenses in the Western Conference going up against one another, and I think that it'll really be a test for everything that we've seen about the Suns with people saying that if they're going to have a downfall, it's going to be because of their lack of depth. So a lot of pressure in that series is going to go on star players Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton to try to lead them past the super-powered Denver Nuggets, who are still undefeated in Jokic's career when he's dropped a triple-double. So I think that is going to be a must-see matchup between those two high-powered offenses. Yeah, and I think going back to your point on the Knicks, a lot of people have been disrespecting them the whole season, myself included at times, but I think what they've been able to do this season has been very, very impressive. I remember saying earlier that if the Knicks did have Julius Randle at full health, then they could make this a very interesting series. And it seems like as talented as the Cavaliers are, they may just not be ready yet. But they're ahead of schedule anyway, so it might not be that big of a deal. At number 4, New York Mets pitcher Max Scherzer was suspended last week following a rosin test that was performed on his hand during the game against the San Francisco Giants. Scherzer was officially suspended for 10 days on April 22nd. Chris, how does this suspension change the Mets' starting rotation?
It definitely puts a damper on it a little bit, especially because they lost Jacob deGrom earlier in the year. They still do have ace Justin Verlander, who is aging absolutely magnificently so far, up past the age of 40, but I really think this is going to put a bit of a damper on their rotation just because of how impactful Scherzer is as a pitcher, multiple-time Cy Young winner, and always going to be in the top 5 or top 10 discussion of starting pitchers, regardless of the year.
Yeah, I think going back to what you said about Verlander, he is scheduled to come back within the next few weeks, but there still isn't a timetable. He is still on the 15-day IL.
Not to mention, they also lost star closer Edwin Diaz before the season due to an injury sustained in the World Baseball Classic. The Mets' pitcher depth is starting to run thin a little bit, isn't it, David?
Yeah, they still do have David Robertson, who is a pretty good closer. I wouldn't say he's in that elite category, but I would probably put him in the top 10 range. So I think that's a good get. He can function as both a setup man and the closer as long as Diaz is out. But in terms of the starting pitching depth, I think they're going to be hard-pressed for quality starts over these next few weeks.
Moving on to our next topic, at number 3, with the playoffs in full swing, the league can't escape their injury problems across the board. Kawhi Leonard was ruled out against their recent game against the Suns. Tyler Hero's still out against Miami, and Joel Embiid is day-to-day for the Philadelphia 76ers. David, with the extent of some of these injuries, does this cause change for how we see the playoffs unfold?
Well, honestly, I think that this is kind of just what happens every year. I think in order to win a championship, as talented as a team could be, a certain amount of luck always plays into it. You look at a team like the Milwaukee Bucks when they won the championship 2 years ago, in that second round series, if the Nets have Kyrie and James Harden for the full series, maybe that turns out to be different. This series with the Suns, if they would have had to deal with a healthy Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, maybe that would have been different. Even you could think of 2 years ago with the Suns, if they would have had to face a healthy Kawhi Leonard with Paul George in the Western Conference Finals, that series could have turned out completely different. I think the team that stays the healthiest during the playoffs is the team that usually wins it. And injuries, they happen. It's a part of the game, but it honestly just comes down to who's healthy at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. I think you really nailed it on the head. I think one of the healthier teams in the league currently is the Los Angeles Lakers. And for the rest of this series, currently the Bucks are definitely one of the more healthy teams, with their only true potential injury being Giannis on how this whole lower back kind of situation plays out. But the Lakers have definitely been able to take advantage of their health, and they've been playing a Grizzlies team that's a bit depleted as well, with Steven Adams being injured, and that's really hurting their big man depth, as the Lakers are a rather pack it inside type of team, not as much shooting on the roster. Just they're really good at. They have Anthony Davis; he can really attack down low.
Yeah, I'll throw Brandon Clark in there as another name that the Grizzlies are missing.
With that, we've got more coming up on the list, including a trade deal that just went through recently. We'll be right back.
For Hawk Talk, especially on days I'm hosting, you really need to be up early looking at those news stories. Even the night before, I'll be finding topics that I can incorporate in the show, and I feel like we get a conversation going.
Once you get the opportunity to do that with other people who appreciate it the same level as you do, it makes it that much more enjoyable.
For everything sports, tune in Monday through Thursday at 91.7 The Edge or watch us on UWW-TV.
Here at UW Whitewater Intramural Sports, we have a motto: a sport for everyone and everyone in a sport.
Come on! Stepped it anyways. Oh, she got that off, and they're gonna count it.
Had a blast. Always have fun at intramurals.
Every day we strive to go above and beyond that goal by providing healthy exercise, promoting leisure education, and giving students that competitive atmosphere they are looking for.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
It's exciting. Brings me back to those high school days with Friday Night Lights.
With our 25 different intramural sports offered, we guarantee that we have a sport for you. Go to our website and find your sport today.
Number 32, Kyle Hornsby.
Inside the 30. Touchdown. Michaela Burgess.
An incredible finish by Hall. The NCAA and its member schools offer nearly 500,000 college athletes a path to go pro in something other than sports. Learn more at ncaa.org.
As an Army ROTC cadet at Whitewater, you have the opportunity to develop into a great leader while learning and applying the Army values to your everyday life. Within ROTC, you have the chance to travel overseas in the CULP program to train with other militaries, attend many elite Army schools such as Airborne and Combat Diver, and you have the opportunity to attend conferences and guest lectures by some of the Army's top-ranking officers. Our Warhawk cadets participate in many extracurricular activities, Division III sports, Greek life, intramural sports, among many other team building and community service events. Being a cadet at Whitewater is more than just being part of the Army. It's also about being active members in our community and coming together to form a family atmosphere. Anyone who wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves while developing themselves professionally should consider UW Whitewater ROTC. To sign up for UW Whitewater ROTC, go to the 4th floor of McCutcheon Hall to room 417.
Welcome back to the list on UWW-TV. Let's continue the countdown to this week's top sports stories. At story number 2, Aaron Rodgers officially traded to the New York Jets. The Green Bay Packers and the New York Jets have officially reached an agreement on Monday, which resulted in Aaron Rodgers becoming a New York Jet himself and the Packers receiving multiple draft picks for the future. Chris, What does this mean for the future of the Packers organization, and who would you say won this trade out of the two teams?
I personally think this trade really made sense for both sides. The Jets got their quarterback. I know a lot of people have been saying they were kind of just a quarterback away from contention, and I kind of agree with that sentiment. I think they have a really good defense. Then the Packers did what they had to do. This is essentially starting, I don't know if we would call it a full-scale rebuild, but definitely a retooling of the roster, getting a lot more young guys in and get the old era out. I think it's really just time to move on from the Rodgers era as a whole.
Yeah, I think this trade really was a good trade for both sides. I mean, the Jets already signed Allen Lazard, who was one of the most productive receivers in Green Bay last year, and I think he can provide some. He's not old at the age of 26, but he could definitely provide some experienced leadership to guys like Garrett Wilson and potentially Jackson Smith-Njigba or Quentin Johnston, as the Jets are rumored to try to take a receiver at pick number 15. And for the Packers, I think you did what you had to do. You got you have Jordan Love, and you're going to give him his chance to try to take over the reins, see if he can be the next franchise quarterback. And now you also positioned yourself to surround him with a little bit more talent in the draft, moving up 2 spots in the draft, and also getting some additional draft compensation as that second-round pick and potentially, hopefully, a first-round pick in the future. So I really do think this is a win for both teams. I think this is a trade that's going to make both teams better, and I will see how it plays out in the rest of the season.
And now it is time to reveal our #1 sports story of the week. The baseball team had some rough games this weekend after they got swept by lacrosse by scores of 6-4, two games resulting in 8-2, and they lost 6-5. Softball team split a series against Illinois Wesleyan. This doesn't change much as their records are 20-6 and 17-11 for the baseball team, 17-11, and for the softball team, 20-6. With both teams gearing up for the end of the season and preparing for the WIAC conference tournaments, where do you think these teams end up, David?
Well, I think it was a rough week for both teams, but baseball obviously having to rebound after getting swept by lacrosse and now finding themselves in the 4th seed for the WIAC tournament if it started today. Obviously, that's just a projection. I think the loss of Sam Vomhoff definitely hurts, as the team is 5-7 as of April 10th when losing him to injury.
I think the baseball team is definitely still in a prime position with guys like Joey Pettit having a good weekend of pitching for the team. Adam Kootway still continuing some good hitting. Donovan Brandel doing it on both sides, both pitching and hitting, just really being a solid contributor overall. For softball, they really just got to keep doing what they're doing. They have 7 players hitting over 300 on the season, including freshman Taylor Kohler, who's really been an impact player. She's had some clutch hits this season, including a walk-off against UW-Platteville.
I think it's a little bit of a tougher road for the baseball team. Obviously, you'd like to see at least 1 win in the WIAC tournament to make your chances feel better, but they definitely have put themselves in a little bit of a tougher position to win out, but hopefully, like I said, they'll be able to rebound from Vomhoff's injury, and with the softball team, you just got to make sure that the bats stay hot.
And with that will do it for this edition of The List. We'll be back next week to talk up the sports headlines. For David Pollier, I'm Chris Pittner, and we will see you then.